No, he wasn't ready. Oh, wait, that's the wrong clip. It is about to go down. All right, 3, 2, 1. The 49ers didn't tell anybody who they were going to take, but how did I know it was going to be Trey Lance? It all started with a wink. That and more today as the draft recap shows continue. We are doing the NFC West at Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom here on the Audible. And before we get to San Francisco, we got to start with Arizona, and Arizona adding playmakers on both sides of the ball. Now, first round, Zaven Collins, linebacker, Tulsa Bloom, one of my favorite players in this entire draft class, because what do you want him to do? That's the answer. Like, that's the question, and the answer is anything. You want to rush the passer? He can do that. You want him to have coverage ability? He can do that. You want him to tackle and fly to the ball? He can do that. Zaven Collins, love the player, love the pick for our man Vance Joseph, right? VJ's got himself another playmaker. There you go, VJ. That one's for you. Another playmaker on that Cardinals defense. So Zaven Collins is their first round pick. Second round pick, Rondell Moore, one of the most explosive players. Who was the player that had like the 46-inch vertical? Like Rondell doesn't have that.
Bebe.
Okay, Rondell doesn't have that, but it's like 39-inch vertical, whatever it is. Like one of the most explosive players in this draft class. More than a gadget guy, you know, because people will be like a Kadarius Toney or something, be like, oh, it's a gadget guy. Rondell Moore can be more than a gadget guy, and he can be that from day one. Another playmaker for that offense. Round 4, Marco Wilson, quarterback, Florida. Round 6, Victor Dimukuje, edge from Duke. Round 6, also Tay Gowan, cornerback, UCF. Round 7, James Wiggins, safety, Cincinnati, a player that I had pegged as a late rounder for the Broncos, potentially rangy guy. Michael Manette, center of Penn State, their final 7th round pick, and this is the Cardinals draft.
Yeah, some talk that they had a deal in place with the Saints to move down. I don't know. I think they're very happy to get Zaven Collins. Zaven Collins, another nice call. You know, he's going to go out there and kill people. You know, he's pumped up. And like you said, he's another versatile playmaker. And what you have here is you have Isaiah Simmons, you have Collins, and saying Collins is going to play right away. I don't know what that means for Jordan Hicks, who's a really good linebacker in his own right, an inside linebacker. But Collins can rush from the edge. Collins can drop into coverage. You know, this is a long line, even though they don't have the same, James Betker's not there anymore, but that special combination of being able to rush the passer from the edge and drop into coverage. You can use that deception. And remember, so many things have happened, Cease. Do you remember that J.J. Watt is a Cardinal now? Arizona Cardinal? Yeah. I mean, so many things have happened. So think about how Buda Baker, he's pretty good. Think about how all these versatile pieces can fit together in Vance Joseph's defense. Rondale Moore. I think this is a fine pick for them because they don't have anybody like Rondale Moore. They don't have that element. Now, it's up to Cliff Kingsbury to use an element like Moore. And, of course, the questions over Moore are, can he get back to that freshman year form? I mean, freshman year, he's like a top 15 pick. Freshman year, we're having the same conversation we had about Devontae Smith. Well, it feels weird to take a guy with his body type this high, but he's that good. And his performance has been dropping off. Is it injuries? Can he stay healthy? But we know that he is somebody who has incredible quickness, incredible acceleration, playmaking instincts, and he was always on the field for Purdue. So he's got stamina. You know, all those metrics from the chip and the shoulder pads, he's going as fast, he's as quick, he's as fresh at the end of the game as he is at the beginning of the game. So this is an element that they can absolutely watch them instead give A.J. Green 120 targets, right? They got A.J. Green too. That's not as exciting as J.J. Watt. You want to see what they can do with him. And see a do-over for the Andy Isabella pick, yeah?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I mean, that's a theme, right? Sometimes there's just do-overs, like Isaiah Wilson and Dylan Radins that we were talking about yesterday. So this is a do-over pick, but Rondale Moore can do more. Third-round pick, I just got to mention this, Rodney Hudson. Their third-round pick was Rodney Hudson. Their third-round pick is one of the best centers in the league. So, again, you look at this team, J.J. Watt on one side of the ball, Rodney Hudson on the other side of the ball. That's a pretty good use of your third-round pick. They did give their 2024 to Baltimore to move up and get Wilson. One of the needs they didn't address with an early pick, cornerback. You know, we'll see. Going to face Stafford twice a year, Russell Wilson, cornerback's a weakness. Well, you hope that pressure gets home, like we've talked about. Coverage versus
Is
pressure.
it rush or cover?
Well, they've got rush, and they need Chandler Jones back this year, of course. Dumi KJ, a power rusher. Gowan is a downhill type. Certainly somebody that can figure into, again, a developmental player. Wiggins, and Cecil, you mentioned Wiggins. He was a Bruce Feldman freak. So you've got Wilson and Gowan developing at cornerback. Wiggins has a lot of upside. And I think that as a 7th-round pick to get him, and Manette was the starting center for Penn State. I think A.Q. Shipley was a starter for this team for a while, another Penn State center. I think that they may have found down the line a starter in the 7th round. So this is a really solid draft. And I think that what's the theme of what we've talked about here, Cease? How are the coaches going to deploy these guys, Collins and Moore? I think that's now, okay, you got these pieces. It's up to you now, coaches. And Cliff Kingsbury, obviously this team is in a better spot than they were when they hired him. But is Cliff Kingsbury a purgatory coach? See, we talk about quarterback purgatory. Is he a coach that's going to keep them in purgatory? Let's see how they can deploy these guys. Vance Joseph, how can you deploy these guys to make your team better in a very tough division?
Yeah, it seems make or break almost for Kingsbury this season, to be sure. The undrafted players, Kerry Angeline from NC State, he's a USC kid. He's a flex guy. He's an F tight end, can line him up in the slot or out wide. So, and that's it. That's what he does. But he also led the Wolfpack in touchdowns over the last 2 years. So interesting. Put a pin in it. How often do we talk about Cardinals tight ends, Bloom?
Yeah, they needed somebody maybe to replace Dan Arnold eventually, who's now with the Panthers. Angeline's definitely a player that we look at in that mold. And they also got another corner, again, maybe one of the better developmental corners that they got, Lorenzo Burns. So we'll see, plant some seeds. Hopefully their cornerbacks can stay healthy this year. Hopefully they don't have to dip into their depth because it is a lot of developmental players right now.
Our buddy Jason Wood says Byron Leftwich is going to bring this team to the playoffs after Kingsbury gets canned. I like it. I'd like that, or Eric Bieniemy. Can someone please get Eric Bieniemy a job, for the love of God? By the way, Bloom, you said here TGIF. Mm-hmm. I like that picture of you and Kate, by the way. Yeah. Do you know what TGIF really stands for? Oh, it stands for The Grind Includes Friday.
Oh, rise and grind.
Rise and grind. Hashtag rise and grind. Let's talk about the Rams who are rising and grinding. Okay. Sounds funny. Tutu Atwell, 2nd rounder, wide receiver out of Louisville. They add some, of course, losing Josh Reynolds. They add another playmaker to that offense. 3rd rounder, Ernest Jones, linebacker, South Carolina Gamecocks. 4th rounders, 3 of them. Bobby Brown, defensive tackle, Texas A&M. Robert Rochelle, cornerback, Central Arkansas. Jacob Harris, wide receiver / tight end, UCF. Okay. 5th rounder, Ernest Brown, defensive end, Northwestern. There's the Funk, Jake Funk, running back of Maryland. No nonsense style for the 7th rounder. Ben Skowronek, wide receiver, Notre Dame. In the 7th round, finally, is Chris Garrett, edge from Concordia, St. Paul.
Well, you can say that McVay, Snead, they have a pattern, right? The pattern, first of all, is no 1st-round pick. When's the last time the Rams had a 1st-round pick? I don't even remember,
Aaron Donald?
Yeah, I don't know. And then in the 2nd round, so, this is a team, well, there's needs here. There's needs on the offensive line, there's needs maybe to refill like John Johnson or Troy Hill or some of the players they lost. No. They take offensive skill players in the 2nd round. We wait. Like the first pick of the Sean McVay regime was Gerald Everett. Last year it was Cam Akers and Van Jefferson. And this year it's Tutu Atwell. And I get it, especially when you have Stafford now. So the vertical pass is back. If you didn't need it spelled out more clearly, the vertical pass is back in this offense. Ding dong, Jared Goff's gone. And Matthew Stafford, they signed Deshaun Jackson. Now they have Tutu Atwell. And you have to think based on the way that in the past they used that jet sweep motion. They got the defense to declare, and you have, I don't know that McVay needs to be in Matthew Stafford's ear, but you have that Tutu Atwell helps them do that. And this is a player, for fantasy, he's a little bit of a puzzle because a 150-pound wide receiver he'll have some long touchdowns. They'll be best ball guy, right? He'll hit some weeks, but you don't see him necessarily as a core part of this offense at that weight. But I think Sean McVay knows exactly what he wants to do with Atwell. They traded their third for 2 fourths. They traded a 101 for Stafford as part of that deal. And then they still had another. Remember, this is a team getting people hired away and getting comp picks for that. Ernest Jones, a revolving door of inside linebackers. I mean, just the names change. I think he's more of a downhill guy. He's more of a 2-down linebacker. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts right away, but he's a limited guy. Bobby Brown, powerful, big, athletic. Here's the theme. We're on the third day, right? Boy, he looks like a football player. He doesn't always play like a football player. The Rams think maybe they can get something out of that. They trade down again. So this team comes into the draft with a limited draft wallet, and you see the trade downs to build that up. And they get Jacob Harris. Is he a wide receiver? Is he tight end? They announced him as a tight end. So that's exciting for fantasy. Now, maybe it's 2 or 3 years down the line, but that's exactly what we're looking for that upside. They get another defensive end in Ernest Brown. So Ernest Brown, our defensive lineman, he's more of an edge setter, early down defensive end. They know what to do with those guys. They trade down again, 170 to 174. They get Jake Funk. Jake Funk can be Malcolm Brown, right? Run hard in that direction. Don't fumble. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like Brown better, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Well, I'm saying that's what they hope. That's what they hope. I'm not saying that Jake Funk is going to be Malcolm Brown, but you see the Malcolm Brown role, having somebody in the backfield. A hard charger. Skowronek is another one that actually some thought had a chance to be converted to tight end, and he can win at the catch point. Right on that threshold. The fact that they announced Harris as a tight end, I'll watch that. I think they announced him as a wide receiver. Garrett's interesting. We talk about these small school players, but we're usually talking about, Adam Shaheen or Mike Strawn from the Colts, some of these big time performers on offense. Garrett was a big time sack artist. And is he a weak side linebacker? He's probably small for an edge. I'm not quite sure where you fit him in. But as a 7th round pick, if you have somebody who's one of the most feared sack artists at a lower level, I'll take that. We'll see if it translates. So an interesting menagerie of picks for the Rams.
That's for sure. Interesting undrafted free agents because I don't really like any of them.
Yeah.
I mean, Landon Akers doesn't have anything that stand out about his game. Wide receiver, Iowa State. Jeremiah Haydell, Texas State. Anybody here for you, Bloom?
Well, they didn't address offensive line, which, okay. Well, maybe not the way I would have stacked the board, but they did get Alaric Jackson. Hey, if you're going to throw an undrafted free agent contract at an offensive lineman, why not an Iowa offensive lineman, right? He's a good run blocker. Can he learn to, you'd rather have the other way where someone can move as a tackle and you get the mean streak, but he can be a good run blocker. Maybe he can work his way up to being a swing tackle. Certainly they need to start making a plan after Andrew Whitworth.
Now it is Friday morning, Bloom, and I got to respond to our man Jason Wood here. I just have to. Now I'll say this: don't have the energy to build up a rant yet. Maybe when we talk about the Broncos. And I'm trying to stay in a good mood because of all the WNBC crap that I'm having to deal with. But I'll say this: and Woodrow sent a message that's like predictive nature. You can't draft grades suck. And I was like, no one's predicting though. You're saying who they got, where they got them. Because if you can't grade a draft, the Jaguars can take Kyle Trask number 1 overall. Well, you can't grade it, right? I don't know. We won't know for 3 years. So anyway, Woodrow, much love, brother. That's for sure. Much love for the early bird discount at footballguys.com. Everyone, if you love the show, you love the Audible, you want to support the show, then you check out footballguys.com. Go to the orange box. It says join now and check out our early bird discount. All of our prices right there for you as well. Just thousands upon tens of thousands of pages of content for you each and every season. It's footballguys.com. Check out our early bird discount. Get in it now and certainly show your support for the show. We appreciate you very much for that. Now, San Francisco, Bloom. It's well, I don't want to give away too much. I'll tell you more off air, but I was usually every year I know who San Francisco is going to take. Okay. And if you all want to do the connections or the dots or the Lassie Barks, it's probably not that hard to figure out the connections between Denver and San Francisco. But I will say this year, they didn't tell anybody at all. Now, they move up to number 3. They do that because they knew that the Jets were going to take Zach Wilson. Obviously, speaking of connections, hell, half the staff with the Jets are former 49ers or former Broncos, by the way. So they know it's going to be Lawrence. They know it's going to be Wilson. They know at 3 there's their guy. They did offer 12 for Sam Darnold. I know Pat McAfee. Did you see that, Bloom? Did you see when Pat McAfee called out my tweet?
Ooh.
And was like,
who
is nice this guy?
You're a nice guy. You're a good guy.
Yeah, I'm a good guy. He sounds like I could have a beer with him. Yeah, they offered that pick for Sam Darnold. The Jets said no. It was before Zach Wilson's pro day. They wanted to see his shoulder. They wanted to feel better about his shoulder before they got rid. So the 49ers move up to 3. I had a feeling it was going to be Trey Lance. So checking in, just like every year. And, the 49ers are a team that I will know who they're going to pick every year. This year, that was not the case, but there's something I had to figure out, Bloom. Do you know what that was?
What you're going to wear draft night when you're on the air to absorb all the sweat.
Yes. It was an emoji. So I sent a text to just someone, let's say, that would know, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to put Trey Lance at 3 in my mock. What do you think?" It's kind of a roundabout way of saying like, what's going to happen? And I was sent back a wink. So I had to decipher that. I was like, I have no idea what that means, but I'm going to stick with it. I felt it was Lance from day one. Yeah. And guess what? It was Trey Lance and everything that he can do. Whether you want to say Cam Newton, I know that Matt has talked about some shades of Steve McNair. You know that he's a runner. You know that he is a smart football player who can make reads. He would regularly make one read and run, and he could do that. He didn't make a lot of mistakes, not a lot of film on him. Everyone talk about level of competition, but this team has an Eastern Illinois quarterback as their quarterback. So don't give me North Dakota State. But Trey Lance is their pick, number 3 overall, and now go. And by the way, for people saying like he's not pro ready, first off, pro ready's bunk because Brady Quinn was pro ready. Okay. And Brady Quinn was awful. Jimmy Clausen, I'm going to pick on Notre Dame quarterbacks here. All these pro-ready quarterbacks. You know how I know Trey Lance is pro-ready? He can run. And that makes it 11-on-11 football. And Kyle Shanahan offense, here's how it's going to go, Bloom. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get hurt about week 7, and Lance will have to force him in. Oh, my God. And Lance can take him to the playoffs. Like, that's the type of player he is. So don't give me this pro-ready. Don't give me this, they got to wait, and he needs 2 years of development. Now, would that help him? Sure, but who in the hell thinks Garoppolo's going to play 2 years? Who thinks he's going to play more than half a season? Like, we have to look at this realistically, and realistically, I think Trey Lance could come in and shine better, especially early on, especially in that system. Bootlegs, rollouts, using your legs, attacking the defense, being true 11-on-11 football. That's what Trey Lance can and should do for the San Francisco 49ers. Let's get through the rest. Aaron Banks, guard, Notre Dame, round 2. Trey Sermon, Matt Waldman's number 1 back. Running back, Ohio State. The backfield was an emphasis for this team. We'll get back to it in a little bit. We'll talk about Trey Sermon. Ambry Thomas, cornerback, Michigan. Jalen Moore, offensive tackle, Western Michigan. Demondre Lenoir, cornerback, Oregon. Talanoa Hufanga, safety, UFC. And then Eli Mitchell, running back, Lafayette, and player I saw down at the Senior Bowl. So let's discuss this. The 49ers, this is the most exciting. And we don't need to worry about Seattle Bloom. What they have, like 3 picks. Right. So, let's flesh it out with San Francisco.
What a story, Cease. We'll be lucky if there's another draft story to stay interested in for 2 months, like San Francisco trading up for the number 3 pick. What can we say now that we've learned? I think it was Trey Lance all along. Or at the very least, as I think
It was Trey Lance all along.
It was Trey Lance all along. As Chris Spiderman put it, Trey Lance was the wire-to-wire leader. Okay, so maybe there was a horse race here, but Trey Lance led it.
The Mac Jones stuff was bunk. Don't anybody believe it? Not for a second. It was not true at all. And it was propped up by people who were trying to make Mac Jones something that he's not.
Well, and that's what's interesting. We can try to solve for X being what's the motivation for people that were starting the Mac Jones buzz. But Kyle Shanahan strongly indicated that, hey, once it got out there, we were not interested in dispelling the notion that that was our interest at all. He added in at all. Mm-hmm. So it was convenient. I don't think the 49ers started this. I don't think this was a 49ers strategy. I just think that whenever they saw that there was the water being muddied, because at the moment they traded up to number 3, I thought Trey Lance. And then immediately there was, everybody that listens to the show knows this story already. I wanted it to be Trey Lance because as football fans, we deserve to get to see the Shanahan offense with that extra dimension, the 11-on-11 dimension. And Trey Lance is the guy to run it. Trey Lance is the guy to run it if you just look at what he did at North Dakota State. Trey Lance is the guy. And actually, now that it's all said and done, Cease, if you'd say someone's running a Shanahan offense, is there a quarterback worth giving up 3 first-round picks to get? He's the guy. I mean, it makes sense. The universe makes sense again. At least that little corner of the universe makes sense. This is really exciting. And I think they're going to keep Garoppolo. I think they're going to keep Garoppolo because there's nobody that wants him. You know, we'll see. I'm not really sure. Where does he end up, Cease? Green Bay after they trade Aaron Rodgers? That's Teddy Bridgewater's spot probably, right? I don't know. Now, what San Francisco needs to do here, because Jimmy Garoppolo is not worth $25 million. You need to convert his contract to like $8 million, and the rest is incentives. And if you play all 16 games and they go to the playoffs and go to the NFC title game, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because can he stay healthy and can he play well? So I think you have 2 ways for Lance to take over here. One is that Garoppolo just plays the way he did in the opener against the Cardinals last year before he got hurt. The other is getting hurt. And then Trey Lance. And remember that Trey Lance is going to get one of the more seamless transitions in terms of offensive systems. He's not going to have to be rebuilt from the ground up. But you also have Trent Williams, Alex Mack, Mike McGlinchey. This is going to be fun. This is going to be really fun. Go to the 2nd round pick. Aaron Banks, Now this is interesting, Cease. You've been covering, or at least watching Shanahan teams, Shanahan running games. Tell me if this is a Shanahan guard. He can blow up the guy in front of him, and he can't be moved. Is that a Shanahan guard?
Not really.
No.
Not really. Shanahan guards he can move and chop somebody when they're not looking.
Right. Okay. I mean, that it's interesting. I mean, at least they traded down. They got a pick bumped up to the 4th round from the 7th. They give up 2 4th-round picks for Trey Sermon. So especially from a fantasy angle, we're always watching who are the players that teams traded up for. Who are the players that teams got anxiety? Like, oh, we can't leave the draft without this guy, right? Jalen Darden. These players that it was very important. Trey Sermon was very important. And hey, Trey Sermon's a great zone runner. You don't look at Trey Sermon's silhouette and think zone runner. He's a good zone runner. He's a good outside zone runner. I don't know if he'll take over this year. It depends on Wilson and Mostert's injury. Poor Wayne Gallman, by the way. We'll bring you in. We're probably not going to need you. But Trey Sermon could be a big, big, big hit, right? I mean, Cease, when we look back at like Olandis Gary and Mike Anderson and guys like that, like Trey Sermon can give you that ruggedness that Anderson and Olandis Gary gave you, but he's got good feet. He's nimble for a big back, and he understands zone running. So I think that they got a hit here. I think that Trey Sermon, I wouldn't say you're crazy if you take Sermon ahead of ETN and Javonte Williams, if only because the marriage of system and player and the quality of the environment around them. Now, if Aaron Rodgers goes to Denver, all bets are off. But the quality of the environment around Trey Sermon, he should be a first-round pick in rookie drafts. And dare I say, even for redraft leagues, you should be really aspirational about getting him because the ceiling is really, really high for him. Ambry Thomas, this is a team. So they went into the offseason. Who are the cornerbacks going to be? I don't know. And they actually somehow bring back Mosley. They bring back K'Wan Williams. They need to develop some guys behind them. Ambry Thomas is someone to develop as an outside corner. Lenoir is, they got him, by the way, that pick in the Quan Alexander trade with New Orleans. That's developmental slot corner. Moore, now here's a zone guy, this is someone who fits in their style, at least the classic style, Jalen Moore from Western Michigan. Hufanga is interesting because he's one of those players. There's all these theories out there. Like, what do you think about those things of like, you should take like the captain or you should take the player who was the leader of a unit. And that maybe is something that can overcome a lack of measurables or otherwise not fitting typical NFL thresholds.
Still have to be good. You can be Josie Jewell. You can captain your ass all the way to special teams and out the league in 3 years.
Yeah.
I understand it. It's an easy way to say, oh, he's a good character guy. And I get that. That's part of the process, but you actually have to have football skill too.
Yeah. And then like football IQ, like how far does football IQ take you? How far does football character take you? Hufanga is a leader of the defense, a smart player, probably a box safety, a sub-package player. And then Elijah Mitchell. And if something happens with Sermon, where Sermon gets hurt or flames out, Mitchell can be, he's not a subtle zone runner. Mitchell's probably more like Olandis Gary and Mike Anderson, right? Where, he's just, we talked about hard charger already once in the show with Jake Funk. But Mitchell's a hard charger. He runs with a narrow base, but he's going to give you everything. And they obviously liked him. They're rebuilding this backfield. Will Mostert and Wilson be back next year? I don't know. It could easily be a Sermon Mitchell backfield. So again, a running back attached to this backfield because of the quality of this offense, because it's, the names change, Mike, Kyle, but we know that when a Shanahan identifies a late round back, he's probably going to be a good fit for the offense.
Yeah. Mitchell needs the hole to be there either on the cutback or on the original block at the entry point, because he's not going to break any tackles. And you mentioned it with Trey Lance, right? Imagine a Shanahan offense with that guy playing quarterback. Okay, I'll say this about Sermon, and I don't think I'm going overboard here. The Shanahan system with Olandis Gary, pretty good, right? Shanahan system with Mike Anderson, pretty good. Shanahan system with Clinton Portis, that was special. Shanahan system with Terrell Davis, that was special. So Trey Sermon, it's almost like the Trey Lance thing, right? It's like, okay, imagine that system. They've been getting by with your Mosterts and all that kind of stuff. Like, you can do that in this system. But what if you had a special player at that position?
Yeah.
Just let it ponder out there. Undrafted free agents for the 49ers. What? Austin Watkins, UAB, some at the Senior Bowl. Not going to separate or anything, but fairly big. He's only 6'1", but he plays larger than that. Big possession receiver. What do you got?
Yeah, Watkins, right? Gabe Davis type. I forget who tossed that comparison out there. I think that's a good. That type of prospect, like you said, not necessarily someone who's going to create separation with their routes, but can win at the catch point, big, and good enough on the hoof to get downfield. Maybe I think that was the most interesting guy that they identified. And look, this is a team that could have some opportunity at outside wide receiver at the end of the depth chart.
Opportunity abounds for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, it's not many of them. It's 3. Dwayne Eskridge, wide receiver, Western Michigan, do it all. Return man, run after the catch, can run through some arm tackles like Eskridge saw as a late second, early third round type of pick. Seattle brings him in. You go, okay, I can see how Seattle would use a guy like that. Actually love one of their other wide receivers, Bloom, when we get to their undrafted guys. Trey Brown, Senior Bowl guy. I really appreciate his feistiness. Like he's sorry, YouTube overlords, big tech. He's an SOB on the field. Okay. That's what he is. He just gets in your back pocket. He harasses you. He knocks the ball away. He frustrates receivers. He gets a little grabby. Like, that's fine. But he's a player that I liked watching at the Senior Bowl and obviously on film as well. And then Stone Forsythe, uh, fell in this draft. Bloom, do we know why he fell? Forsyth, probably should have been a third, fourth rounder. Huge tackle, 6'9". So big body tackle. We'll see. Falls to the sixth. I don't know why. If you know why, let me know. And these are the 3 picks that the Seahawks had.
Yeah, and let's start with Forsyth since you ended with that. I don't know. Medical, maybe. Should have been
the weight thing. Somebody said something about his weight.
Yeah, we don't really have a good answer. He should have been a 3rd round pick in this deep tackle class. So working backwards here, let's just take the Forsyth pick. They traded up for him, and this is a team. Another good thing, he gets to learn from Dwayne Brown. So this is a pick because this is another guy, and this is the kind of offensive tackle I like to draft, Cease, because this is the reality of the NFL. I can find tackles who can run block. You need someone with the size, functional strength, and the movement skills to mirror NFL edge rushers if you're going to stay at offensive tackle. And Forsyth can do that. We can try to build the rest. All right. You can't make a guy a dancing bear. They either are or they aren't. And he is. And he can apply it as a pass blocker. So I like that. And I like that for Russell Wilson. What have we been lamenting for Russell Wilson's whole career? He's like immediately under pressure, right? So again, we were talking about this draft grades. Let's carry on the draft grade talk a little bit. Teams should not be dinged, right? Seattle's going to have the worst draft grade in every grade. That doesn't make any sense because that should be based on what Jamal Adams does. Their 1st and 3rd round pick was for Jamal Adams and next year's 1st. And Gabe Jackson. Remember, they got Gabe Jackson for a 5th round pick. So again, offensive line. What did you do?
They got 3 good players.
Yeah. I mean, what did you do to address the offensive line? We got Gabe Jackson, a 5th round pick. Ain't nobody in the 5th round going to upgrade your line like Gabe Jackson's going to. So can we include that in the grade? Now, you may have a different opinion about Jamal Adams, but Jamal Adams it's debatable. Like a safety who's not a coverage ace, is that somebody you want to give 2 first-round picks to? Well, it depends on how you use them, and we'll see. But if you're going to grade them, you have to include Adams and Jackson. And, of course, you include the picks, not just Stone Forsyth, Dwayne Eskridge. And this one's interesting, Cease, because we look at picks as a window into what teams are thinking, right? The beginning of the offseason, Brian Schottenheimer's gone, difference of opinion. And Pete Carroll's just talking about run. We need to run the ball. Run's important. We got to run. So then they bring in the pass game coordinator for the Rams, Shane Waldron. And then they take a wide receiver in the 2nd round. Now, granted, you could see wide receiver as a need here. They let David Moore go to the Panthers. I think their number 3 receiver right now is like Freddie Swain or maybe Penny Hart. But now it's Dwayne Eskridge. And Eskridge, I don't know if everyone had him in the 2nd round. He was a 2nd-day pick, though. He's got speed. He's got quickness. If you think of him as a slot or even as someone that's a little bit redundant with Tyler Lockett, who they signed to that big extension, at least you can see Eskridge as someone that if Lockett gets hurt, which he does, that the offense can keep humming and you just swap Eskridge in because he can play. He has the physical traits to play a similar role. Maybe he's not going to be as good at the catch point as Lockett is, but he can get open the way Lockett does and add that same speed and quickness. But and I've heard this from some Seahawks fans, and I'm sorry that I don't have their handles on Twitter, but some folks engaged me and said, hey, we hope this is a sign that this is embracing Shane Waldron and 11 personnel. Okay. That would change. See, if we knew that 11 personnel was going to be one of the base sets for this offense, well, now we have to look at this team a little differently, yeah?
Well, why don't you run through Russell Wilson anyway?
Well, right.
Like, seriously, I appreciate the ground game. It's my favorite style of football, but what in the world makes sense? Hey, we're going to give it to Chris Carson or Rashad Penny who can't play, or we're going to feed and let Russell Wilson distribute the ball. Now he's got 3 receivers to do that.
Yeah, and then we have Trey Brown. They trade down, get a little more draft capital with the Trey Brown pick. Here's what's fascinating about Trey Brown. The Seahawks drafted a 5'9" cornerback. What?
Times they are a-changing.
Yeah, right? And it's possible he's a slot corner. They have a couple of guys. I mean, they're not – the wallet's not empty, slot corner as far as –
And Brown doesn't back down from a challenge, though, even though he's a little guy.
Absolutely. And see, we can talk about guys like Jason Verrett. I mean, in this class, Asante Samuel, who we'll talk about in the AFC West show. And I would probably guess that you and I both, even though Alfonso Smith didn't really work out too well for the Broncos, that we like the guys at corner whose game belies their small stature, right? And the thing is, again, you have to ask, like, okay, he's 5'8", 5'9". Does it cause him to lose at the catch point on plays that a longer corner would make, et cetera? And there's some of these guys, and Trey Brown might be one of them, that you say it doesn't matter. It's like Devontae Smith's frame, you know? So I don't know if he's going to be an outside corner. I don't know if this signals that maybe they would be open to a different kind of cornerback outside than they have been. Something to watch there. But even though there's only 3 picks, he's always a lot to talk about.
Always stuff to talk about. And undrafted free agents, Cade Johnson, South Dakota State Jackrabbits, baby. And I loved him at the Senior Bowl, man. I compared him to Miles Morales, like just crazy body control. He's catching stuff over his shoulder on the sideline with the opposite hand, like just crazy, and has late hands. He wasn't like guys run down the field like, here comes the ball. Yeah. And then there's guys like Cade Johnson who are like, oh, the ball's there.
Yep.
Like late hands, man. I love Cade Johnson. He should have been drafted.
Yep.
But Seattle, good job. And again, you're going 11 personnel. And as much as we respect Penny Hart, and we love Penny Hart, Cade Johnson has skills that translate better. Penny Hart's like super quick and electric, right. Not a receiver. Cade Johnson's a receiver, and that's the difference.
Yeah, the story here is receiver. And again, even with Eskridge, there's potentially 2 spots up for grabs here. You know, we'll see if Swain makes it. We'll see if Penny Hart makes it. But there's potentially 2 spots up for grabs here, and they have 3. Well, I'll just mention Connor Weddington because Matt Waldman said he was a good fit for the Doug Baldwin role. But you know who else he said was a good fit for the Doug Baldwin role? Cade Johnson.
Nice.
And Cade Johnson was very high. In the initial Bloom 100, I think he was in the 30s. And we just got to face reality. When a player goes undrafted, he's going to drop. But for those late round picks, rookie draft picks outside of, say, the top 50, I know if you're like me, your rookie draft might go to 100, 111. It goes to 11. Cade Johnson is a very interesting guy. They threw some money at him as an undrafted free agent. I really like his game. The only thing, if Cade Johnson ran a 4.4, he would have probably went in the 3rd round. I think that's the thing. In his lower level competition, all the skills are there. Tamarian Terry. I forget who it was that called him kind of like Bizarro DK Metcalf, you know? Right?
Yeah.
Or he's kind of like a Seth Williams type, right? Who we'll talk about in the AFC West, where, I mean, if you just isolate it, turn back the clock like 15, 20 years. This is exactly what the NFL is looking for at wide receiver.
Right.
A big, long guy with speed that can threaten the defense deep and go up and win the ball. Terry is a baller. I mean, he's a player. He just is someone just like Seth Williams. Like, you don't know what you're going to get. So if they can straighten him out, hey, this is the Big Tent Seattle organization. So this, how many times has Josh Gordon been on this roster? You know, another guy, big, long, can separate. I'm not saying that Terry's Josh Gordon. I'm just saying he's in that archetype of player. So that camp battle at wide receiver, who makes this team and potentially how big their role can be, all of a sudden, if Cade Johnson and Terry really win roster spots, now you're looking at this group 5 deep, and it's dangerous. And now all of a sudden the story that this team might run more 3 wide on early downs gets a lot more fun, even though at the end of last year we thought, well, that's it. It's never coming back. Russ is never going to cook. The restaurant's closed.
We're open and almost 24/7 now with the Audible, because we tie a bow on these draft recaps with the AFC West. It is the Broncos show that is coming up next. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We're the Audible. Super quick break, honestly, shorter than the breaks we've taken before. So we'll be back in like 10 minutes and talking AFC West to tie a bow on the draft recap here on the Audible. Everyone, thanks for watching. Do all those YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And if you commented in the chat room, please comment down below as well. It helps with the algorithm, and I need help just even saying algorithm. So there you go. Everyone, stay frosty.